obviously you're not a golfer.
I must have drank me about 15 Dr. Peppers.
Congratulations. How do you feel?
I gotta pay.
We have heard the chimes at midnight, Master Romeo.
You're an inanimate fucking object! You told I'm coming! And hell's coming with me, you hear? Who the fuck has the goddamn gall to call his house on a Tuesday night? God!
Welcome back, y'all, to another week of Watching for the Weekend. 3 for 3. I don't know where that came from. I've actually been doing this a lot. I called my friend Jalen, I called his brother Darius for some reason, even though his name's Mario, and I knew that. But so I will probably call Sam Jackson, Jackson Sam.
There you go.
I'll go by Jack from the whole episode.
Anyways, we have 3 interesting movies to bring you this week. 2 of them are to me kind of similar, and then third one is like way out of like left field, not in a bad way, like just different movies. I'm joined by my co-host Samuel Holler and Jackson Workman. We have 3 movies for you this week. We have Sam's pick, which is Oklahoma Crude. We have Jackson's pick. Oh, nice. Is that a Twilight Time?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah, I could.
Wow.
Jackson's pick, which is Freeway, and then my pick, which is Grilled. Please tell me you have both. Oh, hell yeah.
You have all 3 of them?
Yes, I do.
Wow.
I almost not threw away, but gave away my copy of Grilled because I was like, when the fuck am I going to watch this? And here
You
I
can
am
give it away now.
using it.
Yeah.
you've seen it.
Get you some money to get back your time.
Exactly. Oh my God. I don't know if we should start with Grilled or not, since we probably will all grill it.
We
But-
can if you want.
Yeah, I'm okay with starting with Grilled.
Back to
as the
Grilled.
host.
All right.
But yes, we have Grilled starring Ray Romano and Kevin James as some sleazy door-to-door salesman. Yep. And with suits that just look awful on them the entire movie. Joined by a wild cast of side characters such as Sofia Vergara, Juliette Lewis,
Burt Reynolds.
forgetting
Fucking Reynolds.
Oh, Burt. I was getting Burt Reynolds at the end. I was trying to remember the dude from, I can't remember their names.
Michael Rappaport.
Michael Rappaport, and then the guy from Good Luck Charlie.
Eric Allen Kramer. Yeah.
Yep. And then even what's his face, Kim Coates was really
Yeah.
good. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot but he was one of my favorite parts about it. Like that whole section was one of my preferred parts of the movie. But the whole movie is basically they are deadbeat door-to-door salesmen who one of them, Ray Romano, for some fucking reason, wants to be an acupuncturist and is almost done with that. He needs the money for his last semester. And then Kevin James, who rightfully so needs money just for a present for his daughter, mainly.
The last play set at that store.
Yep, the last place out of the store. Which again, I feel like this movie had moments, but then there are huge parts that were just like, what the fuck? But basically, they have one last little lead card left. They go to Sofia Vergara's house to sell her meat and freezers at the same time. And then that kind of leads them on this huge, crazy journey throughout the day of getting involved with gangsters and all that. All the while, they're trying to make the one sale of the goddamn meat and freezers. And boy, do they constantly come kind of close until, I mean, spoilers, but Burt Reynolds, the head mob boss guy, decides he'll buy them because they sell them on it.
Yeah, he
And-
likes the way they talk.
Yep. And then the last moment, he's like, you could be shysters trying to, mess with the wrong motherfucker. But you guys seem decent. And I'm just like, and then it cuts to them. And I think like the whole time, like, oh, there's going to be a twist where like they actually couldn't get the grill, like that was all a joke or a lie. And then it just cuts to them living their life, being happy. But yeah, I don't know. It was a up and down, definitely a 5.3. That was a solid 5.3.
I like
I
that.
can
The
see
best
why
thing-
it got released on DVD because they were gonna do it in theaters. They said nope, DVD.
Well, that's where they went straight to DVD, but the back says, if you like comedy, well done. And the puns on here are something else. They have 12 hours to make a sale or they're cooked.
Guess you'll laugh, extra rare.
No, that's a good one.
But yeah, so what did you is I'm assuming we all felt kind of similar about it. What did you
It
guys think?
caught me off guard how just ridiculous it is. And definitely I was like rooting for Kevin James a lot. I didn't really care about Ray Romano very much, especially when he like got through the car and I thought he was just gonna like leave him in the car for a second because Kevin James was stuck in the trunk throwing up. And I don't know, it was a weird fucking movie. Like I just Ray Romano in a movie is not something that I already think about, and then this just kind of like was like, yeah, that's probably what it was like.
But what I was gonna say though, Jackson, what are your 2 cents on the movie and how wild and just almost abhorrent it was sometimes?
So okay, here's my thing. With this movie, I was expecting a full-blown train wreck with this one. Just everything about it was screaming awful movie. The poster looked like it was a direct-to-video movie, had a 5.2 IMDb rating, and it had Kevin James in it. So all just giant red flags suggesting that it was gonna suck ass. So I was like, I was just buckled up, ready for a full-blown car crash with this one. And then, okay, most of the movie was a waste of time. But I'm curious if you guys feel the same way. The first 20 minutes. I was hardcore vibing with it. I was like, I was locked
Yeah, I was
in
really
for the
into
first.
it at first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
I
the
mean, it's
first.
not. Yeah. Sorry.
I was,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I like the way it was shot. Like there was no the cinematography. Like I felt like they were taking it seriously. Like they weren't half-assing anything on that end.
Yeah, for the first
I
20
was like
minutes.
interested for
For the
sure.
first 20 minutes, I was like, okay. I was surprised. I was like, okay, it's funny. The two leads have really good chemistry. I like the plot so far. I was like, I was sitting here, I was like, am I gonna like this movie? What the fuck? And then around the 20-25 minute mark, it started kind of going off the rails because like at first, I legitimately thought a lot of the jokes were funny. Like they had really good banter. Again, Ray Romano and Kevin James both had really good chemistry together. And were trying their best. And there were a lot of funny scenarios. Like, I like the scene of him going to buy the swing set and the dude's trying to upsell him. And he's just like, really? You think you're going to pull that shit with me? Like, really try hard. I was like, okay, this is funny. This is a funny scenario. I like the scene where they're trying to sell John Polito the freezer, and
yeah.
he like blows the sale by taking back the pen, and then later he's like, "You keep the pen out, you don't pull the pen back," you know? It's like, well, you should have given me a code. I was like, okay, this is
Put me
funny.
off.
I'm vibing with. I love the scene where they go to the couple's house and they're changing their minds and they're like jumping over the fence trying to get in there and get into, Kevin James falls down and shit. And I'm just like, okay, all of this is funny. And these two characters so far I find funny and like relatable. And then pretty much it starts kind of falling apart once Sofia Vergara enters the picture. And but even then it was like, okay, I was still vibing with it. It was starting to kind of go a little off the rails once they go to her house, but I was still like, okay, I'm still in, like I'm still invested in what's going on. And then really when it started to lose me was when they got to Juliette Lewis's house, and it feels like pretty much everything from that point on for the first 20 minutes, it felt like they had a script and it felt like they had like a story. And then from the part where they go to Juliette Lewis' house onwards, it feels like they just stopped writing the script and were making up the plot as they went along. And every single scene felt like it was improvised because you have these incredibly long scenes where they're barely doing or saying anything, and all the dialogue feels like it's improvised and not very well for the most part. And the plot, it just gets lost. Like for the first 20 minutes, it's like the plot is like, okay, these door-to-door meat salesmen are falling behind on their quotas and they're down on their luck. And I was calling it like the like the meat version of Glengarry Glen Ross or whatever, because it felt kind of similar, where like the desperate salesman is like, don't know what to do with the leads and shit and are falling behind. And it was there was a plot you could identify with. And again, you have motivations for the characters you can identify with. Like Ray Romano wants to get his degree in acupuncture school and needs to be able to pay for it. Kevin James is not being able to see his daughter that much and needs to like get her a birthday present. Identifiable goals here that, you know, make the characters more relatable and sympathetic and shit. And you're invested and you want to like, okay, I'm in. I want to see them like make a sale. I'm interested to see how they do that. And then that just goes out the window. Like after the whole Sofia Vergara thing starts, and after they go to Juliette Lewis's house, and from that point on, it's just random nonsense. It's just like, oh, gangsters are involved now. Like that's the plot of the movie. Like these gangsters show up, and it's like, first of all,
I will say the gangsters take their meat seriously. All of the gangsters take
they
their meat
sure
very
do.
seriously.
Kim Coates in particular takes his
I
meat
thought he
very,
was like,
very
at first I
seriously.
thought he was talking about like, like cocaine or something like that. When he pulls and then he goes to the fridge and like actually gets the meat out, and then he starts talking about it and I was like, oh shit, okay.
Yeah.
And they start grilling and I'm just like, all right, I'm here for this. Like, I really liked the part where they were talking, like he brought out the meat and then they were gonna do the sale. And I kind of thought that was like a fun, like, okay, he's gonna have to sell this dude on some meat, in the freezers and stuff.
Mhm.
And then I even kind of enjoyed the scene where after Michael Rappaport and the other guy kill him, and they're sitting there trying to decide what to do, and they kind of just decide like to be friends for a second, and they're like, "Yeah, can we eat?" I was
Yeah,
like, "Yeah, I
like
wanted to see that scene where they just sat down and chilled." But then, of course, Julia Lewis fucks it up.
right. And that's the thing is like a lot of like that scene, like a lot of the scenes in the off the rails part of the movie are like the scenarios are funny. Like the scenario in that scene was fun. The idea of them just sitting down and agreeing to just like be friends and eat the meat together. But oh my fucking God, it goes on for so long. And like it just feels like there are just these moments where like it feels like 10 seconds go by where nobody's saying anything, just these gigantic silences where it just really feels like everything they're doing is just totally improvised and they're just making it up as they go. Like it really felt like from the time they get to Juliette Lewis's house onwards, everything they were just making up the plot scene by scene is what it felt like. I mean, because I remember especially because like for a lot of it, um, I was like still invested. I was like, okay, we're kind of off the rails here. We're losing the plot a bit. This isn't really working, but I'm still like curious where it's gonna go. And then in the last 20 minutes, I was just literally like, what the fuck? Why am I even watching this? Like, what? Why are we doing like? I was just the only thing I was really thinking in the last 20 minutes is what a waste of time and money it was for the people who made it. I'm just like, why does this need to exist? What are we doing? Whatever plot we had at the beginning of this movie is gone. Like
Hmm.
this is just random nonsense. Ray Romano was talking about when you see the face of God, you gotta. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what the fuck is this shit? It was very, I don't know, it had a lot of potential at first. And something that it reminded me of is, you know, Kevin James, God bless him, when you put him in the right part, he really is funny. It's just, it's so rare. It's been so rare for so long, especially since he started hanging out with Adam Sandler, for him to get a good part. But in the first 20 minutes of this movie, I was like, man, he really does have a lot of like natural comedic talent when you give him funny shit to do. And Ray Romano was funny too in the first part. I mean, I thought the two of them had really good chemistry together. They seemed like a good duo.
Their
And
montage was fun and was a good way to get me kind of like into these characters and supporting of what they're
yeah,
trying.
again, it was funny. Like, yeah, seeing them strike out on all these sales, it's like I wish they had more of that later on because a lot of what they do later on, and there's some funny moments like Juliette Lewis screaming at the pillow, I thought was funny. That got a laugh out of me. But yeah, and then just I don't know why every shitty comedy feels like they have to include gangsters in the plot. It's just like that to me just shows they had no idea what they were doing. They're like, what happens now? Gangsters get involved, and it's like the scene you've seen in every shitty comedy ever made where the gangster is crazy and is waving his gun around and the main character is scared of him and shit. But yeah, had some promise. Definitely enjoyed the first part. Pretty much the whole last two-thirds of the movie were just a disappointment. Which, it was a shame because I thought for a second it was going to be like a big surprise. I thought it was going to be like, holy shit, am I actually against all odds going to enjoy this movie? not quite.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those movies that honestly, if you haven't seen it or heard of it, you wouldn't believe anybody that told you it existed.
When
Yeah.
you recommended it and I looked it up, that was the vibe I got. I was like, what the fuck is this? How does he even know this exists?
Yeah,
Like
that's
perfect dude.
I can't
Where
remember where I saw it. I saw it like on a post and I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about seeing this." So, like, because that's the thing is, I will say this, given the movie being bad, the soundtrack was a banger. And the reason why I remember this movie, or like the first time I heard of it, was at McKay's. I was doing movie soundtracks, and Grilled was one of them. And I was like, you know, Kevin James and Ray Romano, what the fuck? But it had a banger soundtrack, so I would buy the soundtrack to this for sure.
was it on CD?
Yeah,
Word.
I should have gotten it then because it was only like 95 cents, but still,
Yeah,
I think
and
I think I paid less for the DVD from y'all.
probably hit 25 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell my kids this was Emilia Perez in the future.
I saw that. Good.
The first
Oh,
thing I thought of, I was like, so this is that movie I hear about that's getting all those awards nominations.
wins. Now wins.
I haven't. Have you guys seen it?
No.
No.
It's on Netflix,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
and I'm like, people are like in between. Like some people say it's great, and then some people say it's like an abomination.
Yeah, this is the
I
movie
heard
this
like
year
It's like
that's getting
offensive too. Like not
yeah,
even towards
the
trans
country
people, but
of
like towards Mexicans.
Mexico are like
Yeah, people in
yeah,
yeah.
Mexico are like
like
crazy about. I'm like,
It's the movie this year that like everyone is kind of hating on, and I haven't seen it, but I don't know. It looks kind of stupid, but we'll see. But it's a musical. I didn't know that until recently. That just seems kind of weird. But I'll be curious to check it out eventually.
who's
All I
the
know is
director?
the one movie I've seen from that director was one of the biggest pieces of shit I've ever seen in my life, The Sisters Brothers. So
You
that
hate? Okay.
was one of the most boring, pointless, god-awful things I've ever seen in my life. So I
heard
don't.
the director admitted to not doing any research about
I
Mexico.
saw that, yeah, because the people in Mexico were criticizing it for being inaccurate, and he was like, "Yeah, you're right. I didn't fucking try," basically. And I was like, "Okay,
Word.
like, yeah, like,
Like an Audi belly button.
yeah, that's what she said." Uh,
Wildest lines of the whole movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were a lot of very odd lines in the movie, and that was up there. I also one last thing about Grilled, I have to say I'm impressed with them for waiting a solid like 7 minutes to do the obvious joke of, are you going to give me some meat? I hear it's the best one. Oh yeah, it's the best meat out there. I was like, the second she came into the movie, I was like, how long before that joke happens? And I was impressed. I waited at least a good 7 minutes. I was like, okay, you saved it. You saved it for later.
The one joke I actually laughed like out loud at, which was like one of the small ones, was when like the whole bit where Kevin James was like, "Take your dick, put it in a bag, and bury it."
Yeah,
Like they
again,
have
that
that
was
little
that was
scene,
when we were still doing funny jokes.
and then Ray Romano just hit him with the last second where he goes, "It'd be a big bag," and he goes, "Shut the fuck up!"
That
And
made me
everyone
laugh.
laughed
That made
so
me
hard
laugh
for
out
that.
loud. Yeah. We were still like, yeah, cooking at that point, but we were cooking some meat on the grill, but not later on. But yeah.
Fuck,
So
fuck
That
the
is
meat
grilled.
business. We need to get into oil. We got to start pumping that oil out
yeah.
of the ground.
Sorry, we to the viewers. I don't know how long the discussion is ultimately going to be on Grilled. It would have been longer probably if this fucking piece of shit wouldn't keep cutting us off for having so many crashes. But yeah,
Probably appropriate to the amount that needs to be talked about grilled.
Yeah.
fair enough. But yeah, on to the oil, I guess.
Oil. No, never mind. I'm done with oil. We're going to Mexico because it's Modelo time.
Yes. Our next movie is Sam's Choice, which is Oklahoma Crude. Hugh Jackman has a great voice. Watching the uncensored version, I completely forgot how many fucks there were in in the play. I'm just kidding. But Oklahoma Crude, Sam's movie, directed by Stanley Kramer. Take it away.
Yeah, so Faye Dunaway is the daughter of this piece of shit that I can't remember his name, John Mills,
Mhm.
who left, and she is running this place in Oklahoma where she thinks is going to be full of oil, and she has this jerry-rigged kind of pump system that she has working, and it starts off with her dad coming into town and trying to reconnect with her, and he's like trying to help her with this whole situation, but she's like, "Fuck you, dad, you're a piece of shit," and tells him to fuck off. So then he tries to hire some people to like protect her and like watch over and make sure she's safe, because he knows Jack Palance, the fucking piece of shit dickhead, is gonna come in, take that oil. And so nobody wants to do it because they're all afraid of him and the power of the Oklahoma Pipe and Oil Company, or Gas and Oil, or whatever the fuck it's called. But George C. Scott, who is rough. He has seen some rough days in the New Mexican War and whatnot. He says he'll do it, but she doesn't like him, and he doesn't particularly like her because she's saucy. And the whole story is pretty much them fighting against Jack Palance over this land and the oil that potentially could be under there. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. It is not. Or they,
Oil alert.
yeah, oil alert. Um,
Uh,
Henry Mancini composed the music, so the music was obviously great. Written by Mark Norman, I think he wrote Shakespeare in Love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Best Picture winner technically because of that.
Shouldn't be, but yes.
Um, yeah, I had a really tough time getting into this movie. I was like, after especially going from Grilled and Freeway, I watched this one third, and it was like, this is a hard tonal shift. And so I was like, really trying to get into it. Wasn't really into it. Took a few days off, went back, and then finished it before we recorded. And I'd say the second half of this movie is way more interesting and colorful and just eventful, and I kind of liked it. It's definitely not my favorite Stanley Kramer film by any means. I don't know how y'all felt about it.
Matt.
uh, yeah, I enjoyed it. It definitely is not a bad movie by any means. I wasn't like completely like into it like the whole time necessarily. There were moments where I was just kind of like, all right, it's about oil. I get it. But Jack Palance was great. There were some amazing scenes with him and George C. Scott, like where he tries to buy him off the first time. In the rain. I thought that was a great scene. Like
George
just
C.
acted
Scott
well.
pisses on his leg.
Yep.
All holding the shotgun.
Yeah, it's such a good scene, and like there's a lot of good scenes in the movie too. It's well written. It just didn't like grab me as much, but I mean, it definitely kept me interested, and I will say it was my favorite of the three. So,
Yeah, this yeah, like you said, Sam, this one was a big departure from the other two because the other two, even though Grilled wasn't a very good movie, it was still like exciting, like there was still like shit going on, even though in the last 20 minutes I was very out of it. There's still shit going on. This is one of the most boring movies I've ever seen in my fucking life. This is just like I almost fell asleep watching this. I never stop in the middle of a movie, but I was like I was sitting in this chair and I shouldn't have started it so late. I started this very late last night and I didn't know it was going to be so boring. Or I may have waited until this morning to see it. But I was about an hour and 20 minutes in, and I was just like, I got it. I just got up and took a shower and then came back and finished it because I was like, I have to get up and do something because if I don't, I'm going to fall asleep. Um, it to me the weakest part of the movie is the script. It's just like there's no character development whatsoever in this movie. Like shit just happens and everyone has like just a basic character trait that is not fleshed out. Like Faye Dunaway just is,
stubborn.
like quiet and distrustful and rude. That's it. Like
Like, I
she
guess
she
we're supposed to feel like she built some more kinship with her father when he dies later, but like I never felt it the
No,
whole movie.
none of the things that happen with her in the second half of the movie are earned. Like her all of a sudden really caring about her dad, that we didn't see that happen. We didn't see the journey of her getting to that point where she goes from shooting at him at the beginning of the movie to crying and holding him when he's dead, we don't see, and her and George C. Scott, like that scene when they kiss, I was like, this isn't earned. Like they haven't really bonded at all. She's just been a bitch to him the whole movie. And again,
It
I
gets
wanted like clearly um, you know, her whole character trait is just like she doesn't trust men. And it's like, okay, I wanted it like a backstory for that. I wanted to like learn why. They never really explain why. They hint at like, okay, her dad wasn't there when she was a kid, but I wanted more of a justification. She says at one point, like, I know I've been mean to you, but I have my reasons. I'm like, well, what are those reasons? I would really like to know. I would like to know more about your past and who you are as a character. But no, she just sits there with that look on her face the whole movie and just doesn't really do anything. And like George C. Scott's like one character trait is that he is selfish and he's not loyal to anybody. And it's just like, okay, again, what's your backstory? Like, how did you get to the place you are? Why don't you, you know, want to trust anyone? I don't know. And like John Mills, like, okay, why did you abandon your daughter at a young age? Like, what happened there? Like, and why do you all of a sudden want to come back and be a part of her life? That like nothing is elaborated on. So you don't really feel that much for the characters because they're all just very one-dimensional. What were you gonna say, Matt?
I was gonna say I don't want to bring up the ending first, but I do feel like this is the big talking point I had for it, which was like, because like I felt like it added up to nothing. Like she gets a little bit of oil, it runs dry really fast. They figure out what to do. He's like, I'm gonna go to Mexico, like Sam was saying, and then she just calls his name, and they freeze frame on his like eyes, like being like,
Yeah,
you
that
know.
was I
And
literally
I was
said
just like,
out
what does that
loud.
mean? What the fuck? Like, does it mean he's gonna turn around and run back to her, or does that mean like what? It's not
Yeah.
even like one of those things where like, oh, it could mean all these many things. It just like I was just kind of like, what?
Yeah, no, I 100%
What's
agree.
the
I literally
point?
said out loud, that's it. Like, what the fuck? I was like, I was like, I'm not complaining. I'm bored to death, but like, that's it. Like, just a random ass little freeze frame right after she calls his name. And I was just like, okay, but
It would have been better if it had froze on them cheering as the oil was shooting up and just cut out the fact that it like went
Ran
dry.
by real quick.
yeah, again, like, there's so much.
But I still think it wouldn't have saved a long movie from being a long movie.
It's not even that long of a movie. It's less than 2 hours, but it
I think it
felt
just
so.
feels
It
that long.
felt it felt really long because of how fucking boring it was. It was just like, and so much of what happens again, like I appreciated so much of what they were trying to do, but it just didn't work because the writing just didn't give it any depth. Like I love that scene. That was a great line where they meet George C. Scott again in the town, and Faye Dunaway has that line of like, "Of course, none of you want me to, stand up to them because if I stand up to them and I get my oil, then if a woman does that, then that means you're all a bunch of ballless bastards who don't have the courage to stand up to them." I was like, okay, I appreciate what they're going for here. That's a good line. But again, that's never really brought up before or after, like that specific plot point. So they don't really expand on it. There's so many things where it's just they don't expand on it. They don't like,
That's where definitely some movies you don't need, what's in the character's head and you can like get into that easily, but they don't give you the chance to like think what these characters are
that's what
thinking.
like, yeah, because I was thinking to myself, I was like, a lot of times, yeah, you don't necessarily need to say it out loud because you just spend enough time with the characters and you get enough of a sense of who they are, what they want, what their personalities are. You kind of can tell on your own. But here, again, everyone just has like their one single personality trait, and that's it. And we don't really spend time developing character. And then, like during the few scenes when they should be, instead of building character they're just having some of the most bizarre conversations you've ever heard. Like Faye Dunaway talking about how she wishes she had both sets of genitals so she could fuck herself. I was like, what the fuck? I was sitting here just like, what? This is the weirdest conversation I've ever heard. Like, why are we taking time to have this conversation rather than like actually establishing what her character is here and shit. Like, I guess I get what they're going for. Like, she doesn't really feel like she's one or the other because of her like strong personality and stuff. But this is a very, very bizarre way to convey that. Like I feel like it just the writing just wasn't there for so much of it. And that just felt like a random as hell scene. And then another random as hell moment where he's just in the outhouse and for no reason she just barges in, shoots the gun right next to his head, and then just walks away.
I guess I thought so. Or Sam, what were you gonna say? 'Cause
I
you got it.
really love the moment where the dude was running away naked and she shoots him from the shotgun from behind and you see the buckshot hit different parts of his ass.
Them hemorrhoids are a bitch, man.
But the only reason I thought that she did that, which I even thought that was like excessive as hell for no fucking reason, um, was because she had like her hand hurt and all he did was sit there and watch her. Like he didn't get up to help. He just sat there and stared at her
I
and kind of
guess.
smiled.
I
So I
guess.
guess she felt like, oh fuck you, like.
I guess. It
But
just
that's the only reason I thought it, because even I watched that scene and I was like, okay, what is she gonna do? And then she shoots next to his head. And I was like, that's a little much for him doing absolutely nothing to you.
especially when the other guy came and got her immediately. She didn't even
He didn't need help, yeah.
she called for the other guy, not for him, and he came immediately and helped. So that's why that didn't make any sense to me. And it just seemed like that seemed like it was just later when she shot him. Like it's not like she immediately retaliated against him, but
I thought it was like the next day, like she woke up and she was like, fuck this guy.
it's just very random. There are a lot of like very random moments like that. But again, it's not without its merit. Like Robert Surtees did the cinematography, so it looks fucking gorgeous. A lot of really like all the whole part in the rain was really gorgeous. I really liked the part where they're beating the shit out of them in the rain just because it looked so good. A lot of like, gorgeous shots of the hill and the sunrise and all this. And I will say the one character I really liked, because most of them, like George C. Scott and Faye Dunaway, and of course Jack Palance, I didn't really like any of their characters. It was just like, okay, you're all either in George C. Scott and Faye Dunaway's case, really generic, and there's just not much depth. And in Jack Palance's case, you're just a scumbag, and I hate you because you're, killing people and beating people up. Um, I like John Mills's character. He was the only one in the movie who, so of course I had to kill him because I was legitimately invested. Like when he was climbing up the ladder, I was
The shit on
legitimately,
his back.
yeah, I was legitimately like concerned for him and invested in that. And I was like, I know they're gonna kill him, but I still really want him to make it out of this. And when he falls and dies, I was upset because I liked him, his perform, and I just saw about a week and a half ago. I watched Ryan's Daughter,
Hmm.
and that was the first thing I'd ever seen him in. And you'd think that would be a good start because that's his Oscar-winning role. But it's the least deserving Oscar win I've ever seen, and he was just kind of annoying in that movie. He was going full Simple Jack in that one, but uh, so it was nice in this one to see him be normal and like not do something like that. I was like, this is kind of a redemptive performance for him. And I liked that was a really good scene where legitimately I that moved me. That scene where she's like kind of freaking out in the bed and he gets in the bed and like holds her and shit and he's got like tears in his eyes. I was like, oh, that was a really sweet moment. And the two of them just played it so well. And him in particular, you could really see the emotion like in his face. Like he really just wanted to be there for her and shit. And he was very distressed by what she was going through. But so I liked him, and that scene where he dies and she's holding him, I just wanted more justification for that. Because again, you don't really see them get closer, like to the point where she would feel that way. And you don't even know by the end what it is that he put her through, why she didn't like him that much in the first place. It's like, I don't know, there was just so much more context to me that should have been in the movie. Like from the jump, it was like, I don't know, it almost feels like we started 15 minutes into the movie. I just feel like there was some exposition that we should have gotten beforehand. Like, she was just annoying the shit out of me the way she was just shooting it. She's more gun crazy than Ted Nugent in this movie. She's just like shooting at every single person who comes like 1,000 times. I'm like, calm the fuck down, Jesus Christ. But yeah, it was I don't know, it was just boring. That was its biggest sin really for me.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah. My review, which also is gonna possibly tie into something I'll talk to you guys later about. My whole review is this Spoils of Babylon, episode one.
I saw that, but I didn't get it.
You saw the Spoils Babylon?
No.
Oh, that's gonna tie into what I need to talk to you guys about later.
Oh, okay.
Is we'll discuss this, but I just need
Watch
to know if I can
Babylon.
choose a TV series, if it is the whole runtime of the series is the exact time of a movie, which is two
Okay.
hours and 10 minutes, 2 hours and
Okay.
50. If that counts, I might choose that one next because that
Spoils Babylon.
goddamn Spoils Babylon. I haven't seen that in so long, and that it is literally the op I feel like Sam knows.
It's ridiculous in a really good way.
Yeah, it's ridiculous in a really good way, but episode one in my is
Is Margot
basically
Robbie in it?
huh?
Is Margot Robbie in it?
No,
Personally,
but Tobey Maguire, he's in it.
Okay. Is there an elephant taking a shit in it?
of sorts.
No. Well, yeah.
Of
I mean,
sorts.
it's
Consider Will Ferrell an elephant in it.
it's just I think you would enjoy it just for the absurdity of it. But that's gonna be what I would talk about after this because I was like thinking I was like
Okay.
I'd be down to rewatch it.
but
I've
yeah,
never
because like
seen.
that's all I could think about when I was watching the first half of the movie was just like, and even George T. Scott is dressed like Tim Robbins is dressed, and I
So
was
we
just
got
like,
Tim Robbins and Tobey Maguire in this thing.
oh,
Yeah,
dude, the cast is stacked. It's not just them. It's Maya Rudolph, Kristen Wiig, Haley Joel Osment,
Will Ferrell.
Michael Kenneth Williams.
Okay.
I think he's in this one. He might be in the sequel.
Okay. Well,
There's a
look.
lot of people in this. Like it's literally like just stacked cast for no reason.
Okay.
Will Ferrell, of course, narrates it, and he's doing a Orson Welles impression, kind of.
Okay, so it's a comedy then, I'm guessing.
It's like a dumb, like stupid, like they use like miniatures, but on purpose. Like you can like they'd be like, "Oh, I drove to his house," and then you can just tell it's like a fucking Hot Wheel car on a miniature
Okay.
set. But then they use the sounds like the, it's
Interesting.
just. Anyways, I don't want to spoil too much. Spoil too
Oh,
much.
the
There you
spoils.
go.
Yes,
Yeah.
spoil, spoils. But that's really all I could think about when I was watching this. Like I said, I did like it, but I was also like, I don't know. It wasn't it definitely not my favorite Stanley Kramer movie. Nor like, it was my favorite of the three that we did today, but not necessarily like, you
It's
know.
especially for me, like I about a month ago watched Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, so like this is just a massive, massive downgrade. It's like, oh wow, okay. Like one of the greatest movies ever made, pretty much, and this one of the most boring. But yeah,
But yeah,
Guess onto a movie that's not boring in any way, shape, or
not in
form.
any way, shape, or form.
nope.
Yeah, I guess that would be my pick, Freeway.
Which is
Um,
honestly, Jackson, I gotta say, this was when you said Freeway, threw me off. I did not expect you to ever pick this movie.
well, let me tell you
That seemed
why
like
I
something
picked
me and
it.
Sam would pick.
Let me tell you why I picked it. Shout out to my mom's boyfriend who suggested this. Because he knows I do the podcast. I talk about it with him a lot. And he just suggested this movie to me randomly. And he was talking about it, and
Yes, yes.
I was like, huh, let me look. I'd never heard of it before. And I just looked it up and I was like, this looks interesting. I said, I might pick this for the podcast. Because this sounds interesting. And I thought the same thing. I was like, they're not going to expect me to pick. This is something you guys would pick, some obscure movie that, random weird
A lot
thing
of
that,
screaming.
yeah, because I feel like my picks are usually a little too mainstream. I was like, I want a random curveball that I can throw in there that they're not
That was.
expecting. So there you go. Shout out to him for suggesting this to me. But yeah, so Freeway is a movie from 1996, written and directed by Matthew Bright, who I looked him up, and he is the director of Tiptoes of all things.
Yep. Motherfucking tiptoes.
Yeah, but
Produced by Oliver Stone.
yes, indeed,
Yeah,
produced by Oliver Stone, which makes
he's the
sense because it's
reason why
batshit crazy like one of his movies.
he's the reason
Um,
Kiefer Sutherland got attached.
I
He
guess so.
they were
I
on the
guess
set of Nixon and he was like, "You're doing it."
that makes sense because I was wondering, like, this is a very low budget movie, obviously, that almost wasn't even released in theaters. So I was like, how did they get so many big people? Probably because Oliver Stone was producing it. But the
Feature.
plot basically is it is a modern day retelling of Little Red Riding Hood, a very dark version. Where in this version, Reese Witherspoon is young ass Reese Witherspoon. This is the youngest I've ever seen her in anything. is a teenager living in LA or some part of California, where she is being sexually molested by her stepfather and has a prostitute, drug addicted mother. And when they're arrested by the police, she has to go to her grandma's house, just like in Red Riding Hood. But just like in Red Riding Hood, the big bad wolf, Kiefer Sutherland, is trying to get her. And he's a serial killer pedophile in this version. And he's gonna try to get her.
Wait,
She
isn't the
gotta
wolf a serial killer pedophile in the original version too?
I
It's just
think
implied.
so. I think that's one of the things they kept.
They implied it. In
I
the
think the Brothers Grimm, that was their intention with the original story. But yeah, well, I guess, yeah, now that you mention it, he pretty much is in the original version. It's just never really said. But but yeah, that's she's got to try to get away from him because he's trying to like be all creepy and like kill her and shit. And it takes some turns. Yeah, she's got to try to get to grandma's house. So this was a movie again. I'd never heard of it. I didn't know what to expect. The premise sounded pretty crazy. And I would say for sure this was well, not even just my favorite of the three, but the only one I really liked this week because one was bad, the other was boring, and I didn't care for it. This was the only one I really enjoyed this week.
One's batshit.
Yeah, man, certified batshit movie, like you said, Sam. This is a crazy one. Um, yeah, I enjoyed it because it's one of those things where I was watching it and I was thinking like, okay, this is an idea that I never would have thought of, but somebody else did, and God bless them because I like the idea of like, and first of all, I like the idea of it of like, okay, that's an interesting idea, like a modern Little Red Riding Hood, but like very dark. Um,
Rest in
but I
peace to
also say what?
rest in peace to Bokeem.
Rest in peace to Bokeem. My man
they
got
don't make it
fucked
out. They don't make
up.
it past 25 in the hood,
Exactly.
much less 17.
He looked like he was fucking 30 or some shit. It made me
He did.
uncomfortable when he was making out with Reese
No,
Witherspoon.
to me, honestly, all the high schoolers in that scene looked like I thought like the whole joke was that I was like, oh, it's gonna be a high school class, and then you see it's like people getting their GED or something, and then
Yeah.
like, oh, this is high school, and I was like,
I wasn't quite sure because I mean he was clearly
they
much,
had some good
much,
sleeping on the
much
couch.
older than she was. I was like, I don't know. I didn't know if it was yeah, like some adult like literacy class or what it
That's what
was.
I thought it was. Like at first was it's like people who graduated but didn't know how to read still.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure, but he's clearly like twice as old as she is, and they're like, I mean, they are making the fuck out, like tongue in and everything. I was just like, okay, this
It's
is
her fiance.
yep. There are a lot of scenes in the movie like that
She's a
where
coal burner.
I
Sorry,
couldn't
that
believe
dude.
it when he
He
said that
that guy
shit.
is our. We'll have a whole conversation about him.
Oh yeah. But
His
no, he
character.
said he said that shit, and I was like, a coal burner, Jesus Christ.
When she fought, was in like the interrogation and went crazy and they were fighting.
Hmm.
Um, he apparently was like, just hit me, and she was very much like, no, we are going to plan out this entire fight because I am not going to A, get hurt, or B, hurt you. And I was like, good for you,
Good
Witherspoon.
for
You're
her.
kicking with the right fucking hat.
Yeah. But no, it's there are a lot of moments in the movie that are obviously intentionally very uncomfortable. And that's what I kind of like about it is like it's like half taking the premise seriously and half like we kind of know how crazy this is and we're not really going to shy away from that and we're going to kind of try to intentionally make this as like we know what we're doing here. Like, that Kiefer Sutherland's character is literally named Mr. Wolverton. Like it's a little tongue in cheek. They know what they're doing. And like as soon as he said that, I was like, really? Like, why not just make his last name Wolf? Like, make it even more obvious. But he's great. He's very creepy. Reese Witherspoon is fantastic. It's so weird seeing her so young in this, and just I never knew Reese Witherspoon could kick so much ass, man. She was fucking people up in this movie. Like, I mean, every other scene she's beating the shit out of somebody or almost killing them. And I'm just like, man, like fucking Kill Bill over here. But
Take you out of the recording earlier, Matt and I were trying to do our best Kiefer face with the
Yeah,
Yeah.
his fucked up face. But did you notice in the nightmare sequence he had like that you see the quick flashes of him and he looks much more fucked up in those quick flashes. That
Yes.
was the original test makeup for what he was going to look like. And apparently it took so much longer to apply that version that they didn't have the time to do it. So they had to do the version that they did in the movie, which still looked very good and very creepy. But man, if they had gone all the way with it and done the more full-on version, that would have been even, I think that would have been more effective, but it still worked.
One of the things that confused me, I guess, was there's a scene where in the beginning of the courtroom scenes, his like eye is like patched over with skin or some shit. And then like 3 scenes later he's got his full eye back. And I'm like, did she not shoot him in the fucking eyeball? Like I thought that's where she
I
shot him.
thought
So
his eye was still fucked up later on.
to me it looked normal. Like it looked like I mean it looked like they like kind of like bruised it, but like he could still see through both
Maybe
eyes.
that's why. Maybe again, they
I
didn't
was
have
just
time to
like,
put the full makeup on later in the movie. What was confusing to me was I thought in the courtroom scene at first he was still speaking with his regular voice, and then later he's got the voice thing, and I'm just like, wait a second, when did he get that?
had to have
But
been a deleted scene
fuck
or
him. He
something.
has a chipmunk face anyway. He got beat with the
You sure
ugliest.
got bad teeth, Bob.
yeah, what ugly fucking teeth you got, Bob? I wasn't expecting because I was like, well, if we're doing Red Riding Hood, he's gonna get to Grandma's house first. Like that's the way the story goes. But I was seriously not expecting them to actually have him put the nightcap on and the old grandma pajamas and get in the bed just like in the story. I was like, wow, they're really going all the way with it. And that's what I mean
And
is like,
they showed grandma.
yeah, oh,
So
Yeah.
that
grandma,
was
I did
fucked
more
up.
than that.
That was fucked up. Yeah.
I was like,
But
God
like,
damn.
Sexo.
yeah,
Going
yeah.
over the island shit.
I feel so bad about that guy in the trunk.
Hey,
He's still in there.
He
He's still
he
in
gets
there.
claustrophobic sucking strange dicks, so he's claustrophobic for trying to
he was honestly pretty innocent in my opinion.
He's
I mean,
trying
other
to
than
solicit
just
sex
like
with a
he,
minor.
and rip her off.
yeah, I
Like
guess
he
that was
wasn't gonna
true.
pay her.
That
And he
was
wasn't
my
gonna pay
thing
her.
was
Yeah,
like, yeah, he's
yeah.
trying to have sex with a minor. I'm like, he deserves to get put in the trunk.
But he was in Mexico. He knew what he was doing.
Yeah, but no, to me,
That was fucking weird.
you want to talk about the person, the innocent person who didn't deserve the prison guard she like slashed across the chest. I was like, that was kind of fucked
Yeah.
up. That like she doesn't suffer any consequences. Like they try to make it seem at the end like, oh, well she was telling the truth. That means she's gonna be fine. I'm like, she murdered 2 people just to get out of prison. Like she murdered the old lady as well. I was just like,
So
I don't know.
the old lady was one thing. To the cigar
The old
was
lady
another.
was a bitch, so
That
you
was my
didn't.
thing at the end was like the cop smiling at her like she was the hero or something. And I was like, no. And that's why I gave this movie a pretty low score because as I watched it, I was like, everyone's pretty unlikable, even her. Like even her, like there was parts where I was like, yeah, I agree with what she's doing, but I don't really fucking like her.
Yeah,
Like I
that's
don't know. And it's not like that was Reese Witherspoon, but maybe it was. I don't know.
well, the
It could
thing,
be
yeah,
her.
I agree in the sense that like you're with her for most of the movie because you're like clearly the system is working against her. There's no way she's going to convince them that she's innocent. So I get why she's trying to break out of jail, but like yeah, when she like kills that guard and the old lady was mean and was like abusing her and stuff, but I still don't think she necessarily quite deserved that. I thought like once she started breaking out of jail and killing people, I kind of lost sympathy for her a little bit. So yeah, it was kind of weird at the end how they make it seem like not only is she the good guy, but like um everything she's not going to go to jail now just because she was right about Kiefer Sutherland. It's like, okay, no, she still broke out of jail, killed 2 people. I don't see this going well for her in the long run. And to me, the point shouldn't have been. And I heard the director said that the studio kind of took the movie away from him in the editing room, so maybe the ending was going to be different originally, but it seems like the whole because what I was not expecting was for it to turn into like a for it to have like a super like scathing social critique of like classism and shit because that's pretty much what the movie was. I was just like, wow, okay, they're
Well,
really going in. So but in keeping with that theme, the point of the movie should have been like, you know she still goes to jail and still has to like, even though she was right about Kiefer Sutherland, she still goes to jail and still gets fucked by the system and still, she had to resort to all these things to, and you can agree whether it was justified or not, but like it still just puts it in front of you of just like she had to break out of jail, she had to resort to extreme means because the system was working against her rather than for her and shit. So and I still don't think it was justified her killing that guard, but or I mean, maybe he lived. I don't know. We didn't see him die necessarily, but
Still
uh,
fucked up. Like he's still gonna have a huge ass slash across his
yeah, to
shoulder.
me that was where she
He
kind of
didn't do much.
lost sympathy. For me, was that part where
He
he
even
even
said like
said,
you didn't have to kill me.
"Yeah, I saw." He says that he's like, "You didn't have to kill me," and she's
And
just
she's like,
like,
we
but
didn't.
it
And
was
I'm just like,
still. Yeah, but it was interesting to me because clearly the point that they're trying to make is because of her environment, because of her upbringing, she just sees people like that as molesters and perverts and things like that. And it's just like, obviously she's responsible for her own actions. And obviously, like, that was definitely the point where I was like, okay, I think at this point, like going forward from that point on, I definitely was like, I didn't really have that much sympathy for her. I was just kind of like, okay, I was with you even when you were kind of being, a little crazy up until that moment where I'm just like, okay, now you've actually like killed an innocent person. Like,
see,
you know, but it was
where
still
I stopped,
interesting.
where I stopped like completely being with her was when she first got arrested, and then she called the one of the cops like she like again he was being a dick, but then she called him like a coon and like all these other stuff. I was
She
like,
called him the N-word, yeah.
yeah, and then I was like, damn,
Yeah.
okay, like
And
I was
and
like, I
that
know
was
he's doing his job by trying to provoke you. You gotta like. Then I
yeah.
was like, okay, this is who she is. Clearly,
And
all this
that's
adversity didn't cause her to learn how to read.
And that's the thing is just like obviously that was very unjustified her calling him that. But at the same time, he was extremely out of line in that scene, saying like just doing what came naturally, huh? I was
He
just
was
like, oh
my
fuck
favorite
you, man.
part of the movie because like he would just provoke people. Like he would
He
just be
was
the
yeah,
guy who's like, "Fuck this! I'm just gonna stick you with like a knife with
and
my
he
work."
was a lot more over the top than a lot of the other actors, I thought. He was just
Like
kind of
when he told Brooke Shields, he was like, "She's like children," and he goes, "Yeah, like the one you wanted to put in the gas chamber." And then
yeah.
he's like, "Be kind," and he's like, "Fuck her," and then she
I
just killed
said the same thing. I would literally, when she ran off, he said, fuck. I said the same thing. I said, yeah, fuck that bitch. Go,
him.
what?
Yep,
Brooke
that's how I
Shields
felt.
was
I
driving
knew
me.
she was gonna kill herself. Right when she got to the top, I was like, "She's gonna jump out the window." But then they
Yeah.
showed the gunshot. I was like,
I
"Okay,
didn't know at all. When I heard the gunshot, I was like, oh my God,
I was not
wow.
surprised. I was waiting for it. I was like, yeah, she's gonna kill herself. And that's when I started to be like, what is like not like in a bad way. I was just like, I don't give a fuck about anybody in this movie. Like Reese Witherspoon could get
Well,
the
this
shit
She
kicked out of
was
her, and I still would not care.
she
Like
was
I
just
would just be
driving
like,
me she was driving me so crazy. I didn't even feel bad. I was like, all right, bye.
so the one person, also another person I liked was what's her face from the jail, the Cholo lady, the I can't remember her name.
Yeah, Alana
She
Eubank.
was
Yeah.
she was a good character because like she
Yeah.
had a little bit of a turn. Another person I want to bring up because I didn't look this up, but isn't it Brittany Murphy?
Yeah, I didn't realize that was her. She was
Yeah.
the lesbian girl in the jail. I was like, I did not realize at all that that was her. That was crazy when I found that out afterwards, because she looks and sounds completely different than normal. But yeah, she was great. And all the
Sorry, I have to
actors.
really go to the bathroom, and I was
Okay.
trying to hold it, but I cannot. So I'm gonna run.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
I got a cool fact about this movie to share when he comes back.
Oh boy.
But no, Brittany Murphy was really good in this. I was not expecting her to be one of my favorite characters in the whole
Yeah, I thought
thing.
she was a fun one. She was kind of, I guess, when you look at it, one of the few truly likable characters in the movie. Never really did anything
Oh,
bad.
Joaquin was pretty likable. He was trying to
Yeah, him
get
too. Although, again, like I don't know how old his character is, but he's definitely an adult. So him like making
oh
out with a 14-year-old, I'm just like, But other than that, he was. I mean, Bokeem is just likable all the time because he's Bokeem. But
the stepfather being like, "I'll shit on your pointy head," just killed me when he said that to Reese at the beginning. And then of course he starts to try to rape her, and it's like, well, fuck. Okay.
Amanda Plummer's just being weird as fuck as always. Um,
fucking crack pipe falls out of her purse.
Yeah. Just the second movie on this podcast she's been in where she was weird. She was in Daniel.
Yeah.
She was being weird as hell in that, but it just seems to be her thing. But yeah, it was this one was definitely quite a ride.
There's a lot of small stuff that I read about where like the photo of her dead dad, like her actual dad,
Yeah,
the serial killer.
I read that. What an interesting choice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they based Kiefer off of an actual serial killer that was like of the times and whatnot. So like
Okay,
it's
I'm
really
back.
cool that there's a lot of like that influence from real life killings and
Yeah.
whatnot. But
Sam has a
fun
fun fact to share with us.
Danny Elfman, composer of this music, the GOAT, to help keep budget costs down, he only charged Matthew Bright $1 to write the music for this film, with the promise that Matthew Bright comes to his house and does some yard work. That's how I want to work as a composer. Do my fucking lawn.
Incredible.
I don't need money to write music. I just need someone to do my goddamn bushes.
That's so funny.
That's amazing.
He also only recorded it with three musicians. They all three of them went into the studio with him and they recorded everything, all the parts, all the everything for it.
Amazing.
So
I
love
love
music.
it when like you've got a low budget movie like this and just people just come together to make something really good, like with what little they have. It's really cool. And it's so funny because I should have known immediately that it was a Danny Elfman score because holy shit, did it sound like one. And like when his name came up in the credits, I was like, of course it is. Why didn't I know that immediately as soon as the music started? But yeah, the score for this was wild. I loved it. But yeah, so. I guess, Matt, you definitely have some good points about like, Reese Witherspoon's character was not always likable, but again, it's like um that's kind of what's interesting about it to me is just like no, she isn't in the second part of the movie, or at least in the last 20, 30 minutes. She definitely is not, especially since like again, for me, I was with her for most of it, even when shit was getting crazy. But yeah, it was when she killed that guard to me when I was just like, okay, if she killed that dude and that's it, then yeah, I kind of don't really like her anymore. And but even then it was like, it was just interesting, like, because I don't know if you're necessarily supposed to like her anymore at that point. I think it's just an interesting study on just like, in her mind, these are the things that she thinks she has to do in order to, you know, get to where she wants to be because, you know, the system just automatically is just completely against her and is not trying to help her whatsoever. But at the same time, you know, you could say like, all right, that's what she thinks she has to do. But if she had just stayed in jail and waited for a minute and not taken such hasty actions, the two cops eventually do realize that she's telling the truth, and Kiefer Sutherland, is the killer.
Because they
So
would have realized, yeah, they would have realized that anyways.
exactly. And I'm just saying it's like it's an interesting like what, she did all this, but she didn't have to do all this. And it's like, I don't know. It was just interesting them kind of putting that in front of you. And it's like, you decide whether she should have done this, that, or the other. And it's like, to me, it's like, obviously she should have just stayed put and, and waited. But like, because obviously because that's what I was thinking to myself. I was like, all they have to do is investigate this guy and they're gonna find out he's the killer. Like, all they have to do is just search his house and sure enough, what do? They search his house, they find all that shit in the shed, and it's like, but clearly she doesn't understand that. And it's just like, and Kiefer kind of poisons her mind because he's just like, that's the first thing she wants to do is go to the police. And he's just like, well, they're not going to believe you, it's going to be my word against yours and shit. So,
One of the hardest lines is when she's like, "Do you believe in Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior?" And then just fucking shoots the shit out of him.
one of my favorite, maybe my favorite line in the movie is, Dear God, that shit was fucking crazy, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Um,
that was a good line.
yeah, but
She
yeah,
called
it
the
was,
cop Mr. Oink Man.
yeah. She was saying some wild shit in this one.
She just like snapped after that. Like it was like she was kind of normal, and then after she killed him, like she was like not the same. I mean, I
Second
get
part
that.
of the movie, she was definitely much more unhinged than in the first part.
Yeah.
Because
Oh man. You know what she could have done if she had stayed in jail?
what
She could have learned how to read.
she could have,
Yeah.
You
Brittany
know,
Murphy
she's
could have
still
taught
literate
her.
at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
That's the saddest part. I'm just no, because like honestly, like the ending did kind of like confuse me because I was just like, oh, they're happy. Can I have a cigarette? Sure, darling. And then she's gonna put the cigarette out in your eye and run away. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
like if she was in it like the back of a car and then
Yeah.
still smiling, to me that would make like the back of the police car, but then still like smiling, that would have been more of a, I don't know, like
It's it's
okay, that
it's
makes sense. But
weird.
like,
It's weird to me because it's like, again, I heard the director say that he didn't get final cut on the movie and they re-edited it a lot. And he tried to get Oliver Stone to help him, but he was in Europe doing something and couldn't get a hold of him and shit. And so Oliver Stone kind of abandoned him on that one. But it seemed to me like that ending was definitely like the producers, because you're right, it doesn't make any sense. The idea, first of all, that like, okay, she killed two innocent people, and at that point isn't the best person, and but they do try to make it seem like, yeah, it's kind of like, haha, she's smiling and she's the good guy, but also that there's any universe where she's not going to jail. That was the thing for me where I was just like, okay, you killed two people, you're definitely going back to jail. Like the idea that like, oh, you were right about Kiefer Sutherland, so that means, you're innocent now and you're going to get out. It's like, I don't think that's true at all. That doesn't make any sense. But because see, to me, that last line she had, I don't know, it almost seemed like the implication was, and they were implying this earlier in the movie too, when she's like roaming the streets and stuff, she's become her mother at this point. Like, because her mother kept asking for a cigarette earlier in the movie. And, so like that was to me the implication was like, and again, that's kind of the whole theme of the movie is like kids who are raised in this environment a lot of times can't help but become like their parents who are either drug addicts or prostitutes or whoever it is, just because it's like that's all that they understand. And through a series of tragic circumstances, she tried to get out of it. She tried to go to her grandma's house, but she got accosted by both the serial killer and the system who didn't want to help her. And so now she's kind of just become her mother at this point, where she's also a prostitute roaming the streets, and there she is asking for a cigarette. And that to me was kind of, it seemed like that was more the point, and it's not a good thing. Like
I didn't realize that.
they're trying to say like it's a terrible thing that this girl has ended up basically the same as her mother. But it seems to me like because the director didn't have final cut and the studio took it away, they wanted a more upbeat ending, so they just kind of stopped it there and played the happy music and just ended it on a freeze frame of her smiling and shit. And it's just kind of like, I don't know if this is a happy ending here, but I don't think that things would end well for her after this. But
Girl
um,
didn't win with the freeze frame, did it?
yeah, it was a
Yeah,
freeze frame of her smiling. Yeah,
I mean, grilled. Because they
no,
all movie.
did
All
it?
three
grilled ended with the
have a
pan,
freeze
like the
frame.
pull out, like all the way up,
Oh,
the
okay.
Oh,
really
that's yeah,
dramatic,
yeah.
like,
You're right. You're right.
So we're two for three on the
No,
freeze
but
frame.
Oklahoma Crude ended with a
on the
freeze
freeze
frame.
frame. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So there's 2 for 3 on the freeze frame.
yeah. But yeah, so it definitely, there were some things in there like that where it's like kind of weird. And there were certain other parts of it that were kind of weird. But to me, it was like it was an interesting. I liked the movie a lot. I thought it was a really fun time, really crazy, really just leaning into like it really committed to the premise, like to the point where they were following the story a lot more closely, where she literally says at the end, "My, what big ugly motherfucking teeth you have, Bob."
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, we're really going for it. It was
I didn't
like,
get annoyed by her voice though. Halfway through, I was like, "Shut the fuck up." Part of me was just like,
she
"Dog." Like,
did, man.
I
She
don't
had a
know
very
why.
high
Maybe
pitch.
it's Maybe it's just Reese Witherspoon. I don't know.
But she was
Like,
so good though.
she
Like
was good. I'm not saying she was bad. Like, I didn't
Anything
hate
else like
the
this
thing
in
is,
her.
I gave it a 1.5 on Letterboxd. I don't hate the movie.
Mhm.
I just felt like I had a bad taste in my mouth after, which is weird because like I will watch a Serbian film, nothing.
Yeah.
And then
That's
I'll
it.
watch this and somehow it affects me. So it's not a bad movie. It just
Yeah.
affects me in a weird
And
way.
look, I get it. Like, it is a very disturbing film. I mean, it's one of the most disturbing things I've ever heard. Her talking about being a human urinal. That was like just, revolting to listen
Yeah.
to. But, it's again, it's not like, because, I shat all over Bloody Mama like a month or two ago. And that to me was like literally just purely just trying to be shocking and disgusting for the sake of it. This didn't feel that way to me. This felt like there was a purpose to all of it because they really wanted to highlight the horrible life she has and the horrible situation that she's in. And again, it felt like they were trying to tell a story. It felt like they were trying to make a point. Again, I really was not expecting it to become such a overtly social film where it's just really shoving in your face all this message about classism and stuff like that, where that's kind of the whole second half of the movie is them. I mean, the whole movie really. So again, it felt like there was a point to it. It's not like Bloody Mama where it's just every second of that movie just felt like, oh, we're just trying to shock you and offend you, and there's no real plot, and it's just like, but still, it is understandable if it would leave, a bad taste in somebody's mouth because A, it is very disturbing, a lot of it, and B, yeah, it is kind of like messed up how they make it seem like at the end, like, oh, well, okay, everything's fine and everything's just but I really do feel like that's probably a studio thing. So I don't know. It would be interesting to find out. But um yeah, so I guess
All
that's
right.
it.
Yeah. We have finished this week's episode of Free for Three, which is very divisive. Uh, I'd say more so than most. This
We're
was
I
honestly might
guess
be
so.
0 for 3.
because like nobody because I would say like I would say I'm almost 0 for 3, even though like 1 for 3 technically for I would say Oklahoma Crude is kind of a one.
Yeah.
But it even is like
I'm
a
one.
strong when it's like a
Yeah. I think this is the first time I've been 1 for 3 because Freeway was the only one I liked and the other two I didn't really fuck with. But I do like this week how we all had kind of out there, obscure kind of picks. That was interesting. But yeah, so take us out, Matt.
well, I hope
Set this on
everyone enjoyed it and they learned maybe a couple of things. Namely, don't get into the car with strangers. Just don't drill for oil. And number 3, don't go to random people's fucking houses. Because it will lead you into a world of shit. But Sofia Vergara will always be worth it. So that is our our 3 for 3. Um, and we hope you enjoyed it, or at least are curious about one of the films that we showed.
Yes, we encourage you to give all three a shot.
Yeah.
Um,
You know what we should start doing? We should start saying where they're on so people could watch them.
Well, Oklahoma Crude and Freeway, I think both went off Prime
oh, well, I
already.
watched Oklahoma Crude on Tubi.
I watched
Oh,
Oklahoma Crude on Tubi as well, and Freeway I watched on Prime.
The Freeway was on Prime and Grilled was on Prime. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've been considering putting like a poll out each week saying what our picks are and where people can find them. So like if they want to watch them before the episode comes out, like they can and be caught up in shit. So, but either way, we should say, yeah, I guess where they are. Or just tell people you can go to IMDb and it'll tell you.
True.
Um,
Yeah, that's
um,
the easiest thing, but some people aren't, you
yeah.
know.
But yeah, that's Oklahoma Crude is on Tubi, Grilled and Freeway are on Amazon Prime for those of you interested.
Yeah. And for this week on 3 for 3, thank you for watching.
woo! It's the launch.
Lunch. I finished my beers already.